Alright, and welcome to my guided walkthrough on how to get through Zelda II, The Adventure of Link, without leveling up life and magic. When you think of Zelda, you wouldn't naturally associate it with high difficulty, but the second Zelda game often appears on top 10 lists of hardest NES games. And although difficulty is somewhat subjective, it's definitely quite a challenge to make it all the way through this game. Especially because of the game over mechanic that sets you back all the way to the beginning rather than at the start of the section where you've lost your last life. But in this playthrough we're going to artificially increase the challenge by not leveling up life and magic. However, this only applies to the leveling system and not to extending the life and magic meter using heart and magic containers that you will find throughout the game. In fact, it's physically impossible to finish the game with magic at level 1 without increasing your magic meter with all 4 magic containers. Because certain spells are necessary to get past specific parts of the game, and the way that the magic meter works is that each block corresponds to 16 magic points. And when you level up magic, it doesn't increase the amount of magic points you have, but instead it lowers the amount of magic points that are required to use any given spell. In other words, a higher magic level means that you can get more usage out of a single magic bar. However, on level 1, certain spells that are required to finish the game, like Thunder and Reflect, require 120 magic points. So that means that without a fully extended magic meter, the game literally becomes unbeatable on level 1. In fact, we even need to take a specific and rather convoluted route to get through the game with these restrictions. So, speaking of spells, in the town to the right of the starting point, you acquire the shield spell, which will sometimes help you deal with your life bar being at level 1. However, like all spells, it only remains active for the specific screen or section that you are in. So its usage is rather limited, unfortunately. No matter what you do, with life at level 1, you will die very quickly. So the main benefit you have in this playthrough is that you can solely focus your experience points on your attack power. Now, in principle, you could just be patient and grind on the overworld and level up your sword from the start. But I hate grinding, so there's only a single section in the first palace where I will purposefully kill respawning enemies to get my attack power up 1 extra level. Namely to level 3, because you will get to level 2 without trying. That requires only 200 points. But the reason for getting your attack power to level 3 before fighting the boss on the first palace is because for every crystal you place, so after defeating the boss of a palace, you will automatically get the points you need to level up your highest stat. So after a while you can completely ignore experience points, because you will get the required amount automatically at the end of each palace. But before the first palace we're going to collect the first heart container. Not only will this extend your life bar, but it will also heal any damage you've taken so far. Now, when it comes to the overworld, because we're not going to be too concerned about experience, but since we do need to conserve our life bar, we will want to avoid the random encounters, which is definitely not always possible, but as long as you follow the yellow brick road, even when an enemy silhouette touches you, it will merely result in an empty screen. So that means that every time you are forced to leave the yellow road, you will trigger the appearance of the silhouettes, but by purposefully then making the encounter happen on the road itself, it will give you the most time possible after the empty screen goes away to make it to whatever point you were going to. So that way at least some distances can be safely traversed, but obviously not all of them. So just remember that the slime silhouette is always an easier encounter than the beast silhouette, or whatever you want to call it. The annoying thing about these bubbles is that they are very hard to see, and especially you need to be careful when you are near the edge, because if you get knocked back, you will die in 1 hit. And you never want to lose a life before you even get to a palace. Alright, we're at the first palace. With the exception of this palace, the statue you see at the start will drop a red potion when you hit it. So that way you can always refill your magic meter if you had to use magic to get here. So the enemies you encounter here are first these respawning enemies that give you no experience points. They can move at different speeds, so always keep an eye on the edge of the screen so you can kill them in time. Fortunately, they don't do that much damage. And the same applies to the blue slimes, but even though they are one of the easier enemies, as you would expect, they can be somewhat unpredictable and jump at you exactly when you don't expect it. Skeletons always need to be attacked by crouching because they have their shields up, but they cannot defend against crouching attacks. Although they also have a downward attack, so don't be an idiot like me and never stand under them. One thing you will do a lot in this game is attacking while moving. Whether it's jumping into an enemy while attacking or jumping away, or even sort of doing this short slide by crouching and attacking when you are already moving. It's not much, but that little bit of momentum that you have can make the difference between hitting your enemy and getting hit. Here we have the seemingly invincible skull enemies, although the whole point is that they are not invincible, they just take many hits to kill. And these are the enemies that we'll be farming in a minute. But that has to be later on where they respawn and where there are no other enemies intervening, exactly because they take so many hits to kill. And speaking of many hits, even on a regular playthrough it's advisable to focus on attack strength, because even on level 3 you are still not even all that powerful. But later on, high attack power will somewhat compensate for low defenses. But of course, near the end of the game, you are basically expected to be at level 8, which is the maximum level for each stat. The annoying thing though, when keeping your other stats at level 1, is that each time you reach 50 and 100 points, the leveling up screen will pop up. And that means that you need to be careful to not accidentally level up. So keep that in mind, that screen will keep annoying you throughout the entire game, unfortunately. So here we have a fairy to restore your health, but it won't respawn, so instead I'm going up first to get 2 more keys, and that way if I make it back here, I will have a full life bar and I will still be on my first life. Those heads on the wall often, but not always, contain a red potion when you strike it with your sword, so if you need magic, you might find it there. Okay, these Hammer Brothers wannabes can be really annoying, and unfortunately on the first one I fuck up. But what you need to do is to wait for the widest gap between 2 of their projectiles and use that opportunity to get close to them. Once you get close, all those projectiles will go over you. However, they can still hit you by jumping against you. The vast majority of enemies cannot be touched. In fact, touching an enemy often causes more damage than getting hit by their weapon or projectiles. Also, just like those heads on the wall, some statues of knights can contain potions as well. However, be careful, it's also possible for a statue to come to life when you hit it. In most palaces you basically need to explore every section to get all the small keys. But that doesn't mean you can just take any route. You will want to take the shortest one, so you won't have to unnecessarily traverse the same sections. Remember that you only have 3 lives and getting a game over sets you back to the start. Although you will keep any item you acquire, so it's not necessary to clear out each palace in one perfect go. Okay, so I barely made it, but as I said, now I'm still on my first life and I have a full life bar again. So now we need to head back to the previous elevator, and there we will both farm skulls to get to level 3, and a bit further on we'll find the first item, the candle, that allows you to see in the dark. And as you see, before we get there, we already have the opportunity to kill a skull. And they sure as fuck take a lot of hits. But you will get 50 points when you kill them, so that's why I choose to farm these enemies. Okay, so now my attack power is at level 3, but unfortunately I'm also almost dead, so I will have to be careful now. Those skulls also drain your magic meter, but the shield spell wouldn't really make much of a difference with 1 block of life anyway. By the way, good thing to remember, the shield spell requires 2 blocks of your magic meter and will disappear once you enter a new screen. And I'm referring to the quick fade to black, not when the screen is scrolling, of course. So here we have one of those hammer fuckers again. Let's do it right this time. Wait for the right opportunity to move in between the projectiles and then make sure that he doesn't jump into you when you are close. The best way to deal with knights is by using jump attacks. They can defend against both regular and crouching attacks as they can reposition their shields, but they cannot defend against jumping attacks. And always move backwards after you attack. One of the main difficulties of this game is that your weapon has barely any reach. You almost need to be touching an enemy to hit them, when actually touching them drains a vast amount of your own health. And the energy coming from your sword when your life bar is full will only damage specific enemies. Okay, I'm somehow still alive. Unfortunately, I don't have the healing spell yet, so there's no way to replenish my life. Also, even if I had it, the 4 blocks of magic that you start with aren't even enough to use it. However, after this palace we're going to get the first magic container. Ah crap, that was to be expected. Doesn't matter though, 2 lives should be enough to finish this palace. What you need to watch out for with these skulls is that they bounce against the edge of the screen even when there isn't actually anything there. It's this weird kind of video game logic. So now we have the candle, that item will always remain in our inventory. So if you get a game over now, you will not need to get it again. As I said, you don't have to clear out a palace in one go. However, I'm still on my first life, so we might as well try to defeat the boss and thereby finishing the first palace. So now we need to take the elevator down next to where the ferry was. And down there we need to fight a knight in a rather confined space. And even with your sword at level 3, he still takes 4 hits. As I said, even on a regular playthrough, it's a good decision to focus on your attack strength. These skeletons cannot duck and attack, so if you're standing lower than them, you can hit them, but they cannot hit you. This hammer guy is extra annoying because there's a door in the way. So it's best to wait until he's far enough to the right so you can first unlock the door. Alright, time for the first boss of the game, Horsehead. He's not hard, but he can still hit pretty hard, so make sure to use the defense spell. Then all you need to do is to hit him in the head with jump attacks. And even if you miss his head, you will still knock him back. But you do need to time your jumps based on his attacks and always move back after you hit him. And here I fuck up because I touched him. And now I'm just getting greedy. And that's never good. Just keep in mind that there is no time limit. There's no need to hurry, that will only cause you to make mistakes. Okay, so now we can place the first crystal, which will automatically give us enough experience points to upgrade our highest stat. So after the first palace, we are already halfway when it comes to leveling up, which is pretty good. Okay, 2 more things to do in this episode. First, enter the cave north to Zelda's palace. At the end you will find a trophy. If you bring it to a specific person in the northwest town of Ruto, you will acquire the jump spell. And here we have an example of where your green stick comes in handy. Yeah, I know it's a shield, but come on, it looks like a green stick. Now, lots of projectiles can be blocked, although not all of them. And you basically just need to know which can and cannot. There's not really any clear rule to it. However, taking damage is not much of a concern in this cave, as you can just heal in every town by visiting the prostitute. And the way you recognize people that you need to give items to is that they come out of their houses when you walk by. Alright, so now it's time to extend our magic meter by going to the cave south of Zelda's palace. That means we'll have 5 blocks of magic, and as a rule of thumb, that means you can use both the jump spell and the defense spell with a full meter. And later on it allows you to use the life spell a single time on a full meter. And that will be the end of the first episode. In the next episode we'll be going through the second palace, and I'm going to make a mistake that actually turns out for the better. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. And I hope to see you back in the next episode.